They say the worst calls come at night: death, disaster, betrayal. Mine came at 3:04 a.m. exactly. I remember because the blinking red numbers on the bedside clock were the only light in the room when my world shifted. The phone rang once. I picked up on the second. Her voice was calm. Too calm. "It's over," she said. There was a long pause, like she was savoring it. "The company is mine now. Security will escort you out in the morning." She said it like she was handing me a weather report. Not even a tremble in her voice. Just flat, final, and smug. Claire. My wife of 9 years. My business partner for 7. The woman I loved like a fool and trusted like an idiot. I didn't respond right away. I just sat there. Not stunned, no, clarified. Like the moment right after a punch lands and the pain hasn't caught up yet, but your whole body already knows what just happened. I stared into the dark, jaw clenched. Then I said one word. "Interesting." That's it. No shouting. No begging. Just the word that told her she missed something. Badly. Because while Claire had been scheming behind my back, sliding company shares into shell accounts, charming the board members I handpicked, and filing legal paperwork in the shadows, I'd been watching. 6 months earlier, I caught the scent of something off. She started coming home later, smiling less, asking strange questions about operations she had no reason to be involved in. She thought she was clever, but you can't outmaneuver a man who already died once and came back meaner. She forgot what I was before the suits and the polite wine tastings. I grew up working my uncle's scrapyard in Detroit, learning how to rebuild engines and spot liars in the rust. I've seen rats with better loyalty than some of the people in boardrooms. So, I did what I do best. I planned. That night, after she hung up, I didn't get angry. I got out of bed, walked to my study, and opened the drawer I hadn't touched in months. Inside, one envelope. Labeled, "If she moves first." I had drafted it the week after I found the first hidden stock transfer. Inside was a single letter. Not long. Not dramatic. Just enough. I forwarded it to my lawyer with a 2-word message. Executed. Then I made coffee. Black. No sugar. This was going to be a long night. By dawn, I was on the patio, sipping calmly when the screaming started. Her phone rang. I heard it through the open windows. Then another call. Then another. She picked up, probably thinking it was someone congratulating her. But I knew the moment it all unraveled, because I heard his voice next. Her lawyer. The same slick-haired, Armani-wrapped clown she'd been working with in secret. He was yelling loud enough to wake the dead. "You had no legal right to do this to him. You signed a restricted co-ownership clause in 2017. Do you even know what you did?" I took another sip of coffee and smiled. No, Claire didn't know what she did, but she was about to learn. The house was too quiet that morning, and not in the peaceful kind of way. No birdsong, no clinking of dishes, no false pleasantries drifting from the kitchen like normal. Just silence, the kind that follows a detonation. Claire hadn't come downstairs. Couldn't blame her. She was probably still trying to digest the words restricted co-ownership clause. She had signed it herself, ironically. 2 years into our marriage, when the company started expanding overseas and I needed to make sure someone couldn't just walk in and play Empress with something I'd built from a garage and grit. The clause was simple. Any attempt by either partner to assume sole control of the company without written consent from the other party would automatically trigger a reversal protocol, full legal transfer of voting rights to the party being ousted. Pending a breach. It was ironclad. One of my better ideas, tucked quietly between the honeymoon and her first failed attempt at a hostile board reshuffle. Of course, Claire never read the fine print. She had charm, beauty, the ability to turn heads and win favors with a smile. But what she didn't have, patience. And that was the nail in her own damn coffin. I took my time that morning, got dressed, polished my shoes, ate breakfast like it was any other Tuesday, because to me, it was just the beginning of the next play. But Claire? Her Tuesday was about to unravel faster than a knockoff suit in the rain. By 9 a.m., I got the call from my lawyer, Franklin. The man was a shark in silk, which is why I'd been paying his retainer for a decade even when he wasn't needed. Today? He was. "Ethan," he said, voice calm but clipped, "your wife's attorney is having a legal aneurysm." They didn't know about the clause. Idiots never even requested the original articles of incorporation. "Let me guess," I said, sipping another coffee. "They're demanding a meeting." "Already scheduled. Noon. I'll handle most of it, but I'd suggest you be there. Seeing your face will remind her who she's playing against." By the time I arrived at the downtown office, the damage was done. Claire looked like she hadn't slept. Her perfect hair pulled into a knot that said, "I still have control," even if every cell in her body screamed otherwise. She wore that navy blazer she always used for power plays, the one with gold buttons that made her look like she thought she was captaining a ship. I took one look at her and thought, "You're not the captain anymore." Across the table, Franklin was already laying out the facts like a surgeon with scalpels. Her lawyer, some kid named Monroe who looked like he still practiced in front of a mirror, was sweating through his $1,000 jacket. "You can't seriously expect this to hold," Monroe said, practically barking. "No one enforces co-ownership clauses. They're symbolic." Franklin didn't even blink. "This one's enforceable. Filed with the Secretary of State. Notarized. Witnessed." And he pulled a second document from his briefcase. Claire signed a confirmation addendum 2 years ago during the expansion to Lisbon. He slid it across the table like a death certificate. Claire didn't move. I leaned forward then, for the first time since sitting down. My voice low, steady, but surgical. "You thought you were playing chess, Claire. But you didn't even read the rule book." She didn't respond. Just stared at that paper like it was written in blood. And in a way it was. Her own. By 12:47 p.m., the meeting ended. I left the office with Franklin at my side, walking through glass doors into cold sunlight that felt like freedom. "You want to press further?" he asked me. "You can. Civil court. Damages. Malicious intent to defraud." I shook my head. "Not yet. Because I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. This wasn't about punishment anymore. This was about making sure she remembered. Every single day." The thing about Claire was, she never planned for me to be smart. She married a man with calloused hands and quiet eyes. A man who preferred spreadsheets over speeches, who built things instead of broadcasting them. She loved the version of me that stayed late in the office and came home grateful for lukewarm affection and leftovers in Tupperware. She mistook that quiet for submission. She thought I wouldn't notice the extra phone hidden in her gym bag, the one that buzzed only when she was working late. She thought I'd miss the subtle changes, new perfume, new lingerie tags in the trash, or how she'd started locking her laptop when she stepped away, like I didn't pay for the damn thing in the first place. She thought wrong. Months before her little 3 a.m. ambush, I already had a plan. A contingency. I called it Project Marionette. Because that's what she was about to become, a puppet dangling from the strings I'd tied when she wasn't looking. You see, I'd learned everything about her routine, her meetings, her side deals, her flirtations disguised as partnerships. I had names. I had numbers. I had the receipts, including one name she never thought I'd find. Derek Voss, CFO, former, quiet, dangerous, a man she fired 6 months ago for underperformance. But in reality, she cut him loose because he caught her skimming money into a dummy account labeled C Foundation. Sounded like charity, right? Sweet. Pure. Except it wasn't nonprofit. It was non-reportable. It was her personal slush fund. And Derek? Derek didn't go quietly. He reached out to me 2 weeks after the firing. Said he had information. I offered him a coffee. He came with a flash drive. On it, every wire transfer, every offshore transaction, every lie. At the time, I didn't act. I just thanked him, told him to lay low. But now I had my sword. I spent the next 48 hours putting things in motion. First, I called Derek, told him the game was back on. Then, I scheduled a surprise audit of the company. Not the public-facing shell Claire thought she'd stolen, but the real one. The legal backbone. The entity under my name. The board didn't even blink. They thought I was the quiet one. But when I showed them the numbers, her numbers, their expressions changed faster than stocks after a scandal. I gave them a preview. This is what happens when you let glitter distract from granite. Then I sent an anonymous tip to a journalist I trusted. Finance. Clean record. Hates frauds. I attached 2 images and 3 untraceable PDFs. Subject line: When Queens embezzle. And the cherry on top? I used Claire's own system, the one I built for her, ironically, to backdate a set of emails between her and her strategic consultant. The one she was definitely more than strategic with. I didn't alter the content. I didn't have to. The truth was damning enough. That night, I slept like a stone. Claire didn't come home. She stayed at some hotel, probably with her consultant. Probably trying to salvage her control over something she'd never really owned. Because here's the truth. She took the crown, but I built the kingdom. And now, I was going to salt the earth beneath her throne. It hit the news at 8:06 a.m. on a Thursday. A small finance blog. Niche readership. Deep dive into corporate corruption and executive misconduct. The kind of journalism that doesn't scream, it hums under the skin of industries, crawling into inboxes where it can't be ignored. Embezzlement, executive infidelity, and the shadow war behind a tech power couple. No names in the headline, but everyone who mattered knew exactly who it was about. The reporter was good. Too good. They didn't speculate, they documented. Wire transfers. Confidential board memos. Anonymous quotes from a high-level source within the company. Every line sharp enough to draw blood. And buried halfway down the article, bold and italicized, was a single question. What happens when the face of a company is just a mask for its greatest threat? By noon, my inbox was a war zone. Investors, legal advisors, even former competitors I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly wanted to catch up. You could smell the fear in the market, just a whiff, but it was enough. Claire called me 6 times that morning. I didn't answer once. Instead, I forwarded the article to the entire board of directors with a simple note. I believe we need to talk. I met them in the same conference room where Claire once tried to push me out. That day, she wore pearls and power heels. This time, she wasn't invited. The room was quiet when I walked in, Franklin by my side. The board chairman, old Harold Kern, folded his hands and cleared his throat. "Mr. Sterling," he said, "is it true you were aware of these transactions?" I nodded once. "Long before any of you were. And you didn't act until now?" "Timing," I said, "is everything." They didn't speak for a while. They didn't need to. The silence was agreement, thick and collective. "We'd like you to take over as interim CEO." I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just said, accepted. Claire's name wasn't mentioned once. Not yet. That evening, I got the call from the journalist who'd written the piece. Professional. Measured. "Mr. Sterling, we'd love to do a follow-up interview." I considered it for a moment, swirling a glass of scotch in my hand. "Not yet," I said. "There's more story left to write." Because this wasn't about public shame. This was about the slow erosion of her image. The carefully curated persona she wore like a designer coat. Polished, pristine, admired. I wasn't going to rip it off her. I was going to unravel it thread by thread. I turned off my phone. Sat back in the leather chair she picked out 5 years ago. It used to be hers. Not anymore. The first sign of her unraveling wasn't a scream. It was a silence. Claire didn't call. Didn't text. Didn't show up at the office the next day either. That was how I knew I'd hit her where it hurt. In the image, not the bank account. Money she could replace. But reputation? You only get one. I arrived at the company headquarters early, watched her parking spot remain empty. Boardroom whispers moved like a virus. No one dared say her name out loud, but I could feel it behind every forced smile, every nervous glance. Then came the email. Subject, request for clarification and mediation. From Claire. Not her assistant. Not legal. Not PR. Her. I opened it and read the lines like a surgeon reading a diagnosis he already knew. "Ethan, I believe we've both allowed things to escalate unnecessarily. I propose we meet privately to discuss a more equitable arrangement moving forward. For the good of the company. For the good of our shared legacy." Claire. I stared at the word shared longer than I should have. It was the same word she'd thrown in my face 6 months ago when she tried to renegotiate the prenup behind my back. "Back then," she said, "it's all shared anyway. What's yours is mine." No? She wanted a piece of a ship she tried to sink. I typed 3 words back. "No interest." B. That was the moment it shifted. She stopped asking. She started retaliating. Over the next 72 hours, Claire went on the offensive. She tried freezing company funds, except the ones tied to me were already rerouted through holding structures she never even knew existed. She reached out to mutual allies, found out most of them were more interested in self-preservation than saving her. She made public statements carefully rehearsed, borderline theatrical, implying that I was suffering a mental break, too fixated on the past to lead the company forward. It would have worked on the old me, the me who'd been instead of broke, the husband who once gave her the benefit of the doubt even when the bank statements didn't line up. But this time, I didn't flinch. Because this time, I wasn't playing defense. I was playing surgeon. I started feeding her legal team breadcrumbs. Not lies, truths. Uncomfortable ones. Leaked them through sources they couldn't trace. A voicemail here. A photo there. One internal memo about her second dummy account. One time-stamped file of her meeting a competitor's CFO over wine and whisper deals. Each one small enough to ignore. But together, a mosaic of guilt. By the end of the week, I got another email. One line. Ethan, what do you want? Ah, there it was. The edge. The desperation she used to mock in others. I didn't reply. Not yet. I wanted her to stew in that silence the way I once stewed in betrayal. Let her sit alone in a house full of mirrors. Let her wonder which one still reflects the woman she used to be and which one's already shattered. She showed up in person. Not scheduled. Not invited. Not warned. Just walked right through the lobby of the company she used to run like she still owned it, stilettos clacking like gunshots across marble, sunglasses on like armor. I was in my office, halfway through reviewing our quarterly burn rate, when security pinged me. Sir, Mrs. Sterling is here to see you. Not Miss Claire Bennett. Not your ex-wife. Still Mrs. Sterling. The name she fought for in court. The one she wore like a designer label she didn't earn. I leaned back and said, send her up. She walked in like a memory, perfect hair, tailored blazer, and a gaze sharp enough to cut steel. But I saw it this time. The twitch in her jaw. The hairline crack at the corner of her lipsticked mouth. She was holding herself together with sheer force of habit. I didn't offer her a seat. She took one anyway. Ethan, she said, smooth as ever. Let's talk. I gave her a look that could have been mistaken for a nod. She reached into her purse and slid a thick envelope across my desk. Inside, settlement proposals, revised ownership shares, clauses for confidentiality, NDAs long enough to bury the truth 6 feet under. I'm willing to walk, she said, if you let me keep the Aspen property, the Ferrari, and the trademarks I personally filed. You can keep the rest. She was offering a trade, a graceful exit, a way out before the house burned down. But what she didn't know was this. The fire had already spread. I opened the envelope slowly, scanned it. Then I laughed, a short, cold sound that stopped her mid-sentence. You think this is negotiation? I asked. Claire, you don't have anything to offer me. She blinked. Excuse me. You're not offering terms. You're offering delusions. That car? It's in the company's name. That house? I bought it through an asset trust before our 5th anniversary. Check the paperwork. As for the trademarks, you filed them using embezzled funds, meaning they're contaminated. I stood up then, slowly, deliberately. You're offering me the crumbs of a cake I baked, served, and watched you eat. She opened her mouth, probably to argue. I wasn't finished. But I'll give you something, I said, because I want this over as much as you do. I handed her a fresh envelope. No gold trim. No legal jargon. Just clean white paper. Inside, my offer. 0 cash. 0 property. 0 equity. What she could have. A single guaranteed NDA to keep her name out of the final audit report. A closed-door settlement to prevent the press from connecting her to the offshore account scandal. A clean exit. No jail time. No headlines. That was it. She stared at it. Like it was a trap. It wasn't. It was a gift. She looked up. And if I say no? I smiled. Then you get what you wanted, Claire, a public platform. But not the kind with applause. She didn't respond. Just sat there, calculating, her mind ticking through escape routes that didn't exist anymore. After a long moment, she stood up and took the envelope. She didn't thank me. Didn't curse me either. She just left, her heels quieter now. Like she finally understood she wasn't walking out as a queen. She was walking out as a footnote. You'd think once the dust settled, I'd feel triumphant. Victorious. Vindicated. Whatever word people like to slap on the back of a man who survives betrayal without drawing blood. But let me tell you something. Winning doesn't always feel good. Sometimes, it feels like silence in a big house. Like your own footsteps echoing louder than they used to. Like coffee in the morning with no second mug across the table. I didn't miss Claire, no. That part of me had been cauterized. But I missed the illusion. The idea that there was someone on my side. That all the work, the hours, the decades meant something to someone who shared my bed. Turns out, I was building a future for two while she was mapping out exits behind my back. So after the deal was signed and she slithered away into silence, I didn't throw a party. I didn't gloat. I rebuilt. First, I restructured the company. Took every division she tampered with and pulled it apart. Not because I had to, because I wanted to know what else she'd touched. What else she'd poisoned. Turns out, she'd been funneling R&D money into vanity projects, influencer partnerships, flashy PR campaigns, a doomed skincare tech hybrid app, don't ask. Things that looked good in press releases and tanked in quarterly reviews. She wanted headlines. I wanted results. So I did what she never could. I cut the fat. Brought back the developers she forced out. Gave department heads autonomy again. Said 4 words Claire never once uttered in that office. I trust your instincts. And suddenly, the work got better. Cleaner. Sharper. Not because I was some visionary, but because the people under me stopped being afraid. Funny how fear stifles progress. Funny how much damage one narcissist can do with a title and a budget. While I was putting things back in order, Claire tried to stay relevant. I heard about it in fragments. She moved to a high-rise across town, the kind with doormen who don't look you in the eye and rent that costs more than most people's annual salary. She started her own consulting firm. Cute. Problem was, nobody wanted advice from a woman who just got booted from her own empire. Whispers about embezzlement don't vanish just because you delete your LinkedIn bio. Then, the real twist came. A week after the settlement, I got a package. No return address. Inside, a framed photo of us. From the early days. One of those black and white corporate shoots where we were both dressed like we had somewhere to be, laughing like we hadn't realized yet that laughter had a shelf life. Scrawled on the back, in ink that looked rushed. You didn't have to destroy me. I looked at that photo for a long time. Then I put it in the fireplace. Watched the corners curl, the smiles blacken and flake into ash. She destroyed herself. I just held up the mirror. I met her in the most unlikely place, the elevator. I just finished a brutal board meeting where half the agenda was fixing the ghost damage Claire left behind. You know, the kind that doesn't show up in reports, demoralized staff, lost trust, petty sabotage between departments she pit against each other like it was a sport. I stepped into the elevator, loosened my tie, rubbed the kind of tension from my neck that doesn't come from hours, it comes from years. That's when she stepped in. Gray blazer. No jewelry. Hair in a bun that said I don't need accessories to command attention. She didn't smile. Didn't flinch when she saw me. Just gave a quick, professional nod and stared straight ahead like the city skyline outside the glass meant something to her. Most people in this building would either shrink or fawn. She did neither. I don't know what made me speak. Maybe it was the quiet. Maybe it was the fact that she didn't treat me like the man who just bulldozed his own wife in a silent war. She treated me like any other executive on the 30th floor. You new here? I asked. She turned to me. Just enough. Not new. Just invisible. Until now. That line? It wasn't flotation. It was a challenge. Turned out she was head of internal audit, Olivia Harper. She'd been on payroll for 2 years, but Claire had buried her beneath layers of busy work and glass ceilings. Probably because Olivia asked too many questions. Probably because she couldn't be bought with flattery or drinks at the Ritz. I invited her to coffee. She declined. Said she'd rather meet in her office because conversations with paper trails were cleaner. My kind of woman. The first thing I noticed when I sat down across from her wasn't the way she spoke. It was the way she listened. Eyes sharp, hands still. She didn't just wait to talk, she absorbed. Measured. So, she said, after I explained what I was rebuilding, you want me to tell you where the bodies are buried? No, I replied. I want you to tell me which ones are still breathing. That made her smirk. Just barely. She opened a folder. Let's start with marketing. Over the next 3 weeks, Olivia became my closest ally. Not romantically, not yet. This wasn't about attraction. This was about something I hadn't felt in a long time. Mutual respect. No games. No masks. Just 2 professionals cleaning up a mess made by someone who thought charisma was a substitute for competence. She didn't ask about Claire. Didn't tiptoe around the scandal. She treated me like what I was, a man who made a hard decision and stood by it. But the best part? She never once asked what really happened. Because she already knew. Some people don't need the full story. They just read the room, smell the smoke, and know someone tried to set a fire they couldn't control. Olivia was that type. One night, we were going over expense reports, stuff Claire had once buried under a fake branding initiative, and Olivia pointed to a line item labeled Client Retention Entertainment, $11,200. Want to know what this actually was? She asked. What? She slid over a copy of a receipt. 2 round-trip first-class tickets to the Amalfi Coast. Passenger 1, Claire Sterling. Passenger 2, initials only. Not mine. Olivia didn't look at me. Didn't need to. Instead, she said something I'll never forget. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is let someone dig their own grave, then charge them for the shovel. I didn't say anything. Just leaned back in my chair and smiled. It started small. Not a spark. Not a kiss. Just a pause. We were in her office. Late again. Most of the building had gone dark except for the humming fluorescence above us. Another round of asset tracing, another shell company Claire had used to fund a self-glorified Women in Tech foundation that was really just a PR laundering front for her affair-fueled travel budget. I was halfway through dissecting one of the fake vendor contracts when I stopped. My hand just froze on the page. Not from fatigue. From peace. The kind of strange, quiet peace that doesn't show up with candles or jazz or some awkward first-date script. Just the absence of chaos. Of needing to explain yourself. Of watching your back because you know someone you trusted is behind it. Olivia looked up. Saw it. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. Instead, she asked, "When's the last time you slept?" I smirked. Define sleep. She didn't laugh. Just stood, walked to her cabinet, pulled out a small, dusty bottle of bourbon. "This is off the record," she said. 2 glasses. No ice. No garnish. Just straight. We drank in silence. Then she asked the question no one else had the guts to. "Why didn't you burn her?" I looked at her. Really looked. Most people asked that like it was entertainment. Like they wanted details for gossip or to stroke their own ego. If it were me, I'd have ruined her. But Olivia? She asked it like a strategist. A soldier who'd survived her own war. I answered honestly. Because if I had, I'd still be tangled in her. She nodded. Just once. Like she understood something most people never do. Revenge isn't about noise. It's about clarity. That night we didn't kiss. We didn't flirt. But something changed. The space between us got quieter. Not colder, closer. Like 2 pieces of metal that had been forged in the same flame and just realized they fit. A few days later, I walked into her office and found a small, worn notebook on my desk. Inside were 2 names former vendors Claire had blacklisted for lack of scalability. What Olivia knew, and what I learned later, was this. Those 2 companies? They were run by women Claire considered threats. Smarter. Younger. Untouchable by flattery. She cut them out not because they failed. She cut them out because they reminded her of everything she pretended to be. And now? I gave them contracts. Big ones. They're rebuilding the platforms Claire tried to hijack. And when they succeed, and they will, they'll know exactly who handed them the keys. Not Claire. Me. And maybe, just maybe, her. Olivia. The woman in the gray blazer. It was supposed to be another work night. Just numbers. Just names. Just paper. But emotions? They don't give a damn about schedules. It was raining, not the cinematic, romantic kind. No. This was Midwest horizontal rain, windshield wiper breaking, power line shaking rain. I'd stayed late at the office again, pushing through the last of Claire's phantom vendors. Olivia had been in her office, lights dimmed, phone off. I was about to leave when I passed by and saw her. Sitting there. Still. Staring at nothing. Her hands were folded in front of her, but her eyes? They were locked on something far away. Something not even in the room. I knocked softly. She didn't flinch. "I've got whiskey," I said. She didn't smile. But she stood and followed me anyway. In my office, we sat across from each other. 2 glasses between us. No music. No words. Eventually, she spoke. I used to be engaged. The words came out like she wasn't sure they were hers. I didn't interrupt. He was in finance. Slick. Polished. Everything on the surface said stable. Underneath, he was gutting my self-worth piece by piece. Told me my job was quaint. That my ambition was a phase. That my strength was masculine. Her fingers tightened around the glass. I left him after 3 years. Walked out and never looked back. But the scar? It doesn't fade. It just moves. I didn't offer pity. I offered presence. Silence. Stillness. Understanding. After a while, I spoke. Claire used to laugh at the idea that I needed validation. Called it weakness. Said real men don't need approval, they command it. I took a slow sip, stared out the rain-streaked window. Problem was, I wasn't looking for validation. I was looking for partnership. She mistook my trust for dependence. Olivia nodded slowly. You gave her peace, and she resented it, she said. And you gave yours ambition, I added, and he feared it. The crack between us? It didn't split us. It pulled us closer. She stood up then, walked over to the shelves behind me. Ran a hand along the edge of an old architectural model I'd kept from my early startup days. You still build things, she said softly. I looked at her. You still protect them. That was it. Not a kiss. Not a confession. Just A shift. Like gravity leaning. We didn't cross the line that night. But we both saw it. We both knew, when the time came, it wouldn't be by accident. It would be a choice. Not out of desperation, but out of respect. Out of survival. Two people who'd lost everything they gave someone else, and finally found someone who wouldn't ask them to bleed for it again. She waited until the headlines cooled. Until the board settled. Until the company restructured, stabilized, and started performing again under my leadership. That's when she struck. Claire never made the same mistake twice. She didn't come at me through lawyers, media, or grandstanding this time. She came through legacy. It started with a whisper from HR, something about a foundation initiative applying for a cross-licensing deal using my name. Then a few emails landed in my inbox with legal documents referencing Sterling Futures, a nonprofit Claire claimed was designed to empower women in underserved communities through tech education. Admirable on the surface. But I smelled it immediately. She was trying to rewrite history. Claire had named the foundation after me, then used it to bury her PR corpse and rise again as the Phoenix. Publicly, she positioned it as a redemption arc, quiet, noble. Privately, she was trying to buy credibility she didn't earn using my name and my reputation like a Band-Aid over a bullet wound. The documents claimed I was in full support. Forged. Sloppy. I called Franklin. She's trying to launder her name through mine, I said. Can we stop it? He didn't even hesitate. Already on it. Trademark violation, identity misrepresentation, and my favorite, malicious public misappropriation. She's done, Ethan. This was a desperation play. But it wasn't about legality anymore. This was personal. So I didn't go to court. I went to Olivia. She read through the proposal in silence, flipping through pages while the glow of her desk lamp lit up the fury rising just behind her composed face. She really thinks she can steal your narrative, she muttered. She can try. Olivia looked up at me, fire in her voice this time. Let me burn it. I nodded once. 3 days later, she published a report. Internal. Precise. Cold. A quiet audit trail tracing every connection between Claire's so-called nonprofit and the former shell accounts from her embezzlement scandal. She didn't leak it. She didn't blast it. She just filed it. With the SEC. With the IRS. With every regulatory board that had Claire's name in a file somewhere collecting dust. And then, we waited. 48 hours later, Claire's lawyer called Franklin. Stammering. Panicked. I thought we had a deal, he said. Franklin didn't even blink. We did. And she broke it. Again. Claire tried one last Hail Mary, a letter. Handwritten. Slid under my office door. It was short. You win. But you always needed to. I read it once. Twice. Then dropped it into the shredder. Because this wasn't about needing to win. This was about refusing to lose to someone who never fought fair. That afternoon, Olivia walked into my office, closed the door behind her, and for the first time, didn't sit on the other side of the desk. She stood beside me. No more distance. No more strategies. Just two survivors. Two architects of our own damn piece. The storm passed. The company stood. Claire was gone. And for the first time in over a decade, there was silence. Not the threatening kind. The empty kind. You don't realize how much noise betrayal makes until it's gone. Then suddenly, you're left with your own thoughts. No more lies to parse, no more threats to counter, no more emails written with one hand and a knife in the other. Just you. The man in the mirror. The one who survived. And the question no one ever wants to ask. Now what? The office felt colder. Not physically, spiritually. The kind of cold that lingers in places you used to love. Rooms once shared now felt like archives. The scent of revenge faded fast. And all that remained was the faint echo of everything I'd once built with someone I thought I knew. I kept working. Kept restructuring. Olivia was a fixture now, not as a crutch, not as a rebound, but as something sturdier. Real. She didn't try to fix me. She just saw me. And didn't flinch. One night, we stayed late again. You'd think that stopped being notable, but this time it wasn't work. It was the silence again, but not empty. Not cold. I was sitting on the floor of my office. Yeah, the floor. Back against the wall, drink in hand, tie loosened, shoes off. The weight of the whole war finally settling into my bones. Olivia walked in. Took one look. No judgment. She sat down next to me. Didn't say a word. After a few minutes, I spoke. You ever wonder if we're broken? She didn't blink. No. Just reforged. I looked over at her. Same metal. Different blade. She nodded once. Sharper. We sat there for a long time. No need to fill the air. That's the thing about surviving people like Claire. It teaches you the value of silence. Real silence. The kind where no one's hiding anything. No one's playing a part. When she finally stood, she didn't leave. She offered her hand. Come on, let's go home. And that word? It didn't sting like it used to. Because this time, it wasn't a place I'd built for someone else to destroy. It was something I'd finally started building for myself. With someone who didn't just love the results, she respected the work. And maybe that's what healing really is. Not forgetting. Not forgiving. Just recognizing the damage and choosing to rebuild anyway. I thought it was over. I thought burying her brand, untangling her lies, and burning the last of her legacy meant closure. But ghosts don't go quietly. Not the kind that smile in your wedding photos. It happened at a pitch meeting. We were reviewing a promising new AI firm, sharp founder, clean tech, great numbers. Olivia and I sat across from her, a woman in her early 30s named Harper Lynn. Focused, brilliant, clearly someone who'd carved her own path. And then it happened. Right there on slide 6 of her presentation, I saw it. Sterling Futures. Claire's foundation. The one she tried to resurrect under my name and nearly got buried by in the process. Harper was praising it, said they'd helped fund her prototype. That the foundation's early support gave her a chance when no one else would. I felt Olivia shift beside me. Tension without words. After the meeting, I pulled Harper aside. Who brought you into Sterling Futures? She blinked. One of their legacy donors. They're a bit scattered now, but back then, it was a godsend. Why? I didn't answer, but I felt it in my gut. Claire had left behind a landmine, one I'd almost stepped on. Someone out there had taken the ashes of her fraud and propped up a few good faces to make it look legitimate again. Rebranded. Whitewashed. And Harper? She was a casualty waiting to happen. She didn't know the name she was tied to. Didn't know the foundation that helped her had roots soaked in deceit. And if she ever went public with the wrong photo or mentioned Claire's name on a panel, she'd go down with it. That night, I went back to my old files. The ones I swore I was done with. I traced the back end of what was left of Sterling Futures, its shell site, its inactive board, the accounts barely hanging on through automated donations from people who never updated their withdrawal settings. It wasn't Claire running it anymore. It was one of her protégés. Some second-rate PR hustler who used to be glued to her heels at events. A woman who saw what Claire did and thought that's how power works. I made one phone call. Franklin, you want her taken down too? He asked. I stared at the screen. At the logo. At the foundation trying to peddle Claire's name in warm, progressive language. No. I want distance. Quietly. Safely. I want every record of my name erased from that damn foundation, and I want Harper Lynn untied from it yesterday. He did it in 48 hours. Olivia reached out to Harper personally. Told her the truth, not the full scandal, just enough. Claire's name? Buried again. The project? We funded it ourselves. Harper never knew how close she came to drowning in someone else's shame. But I knew. And in the days that followed, I sat in my office late one night, staring at the last file labeled Claire Legacy Risk. I moved it to the trash. Emptied the bin. Because some ghosts don't need exorcising. They just need to know they're irrelevant.